Welcome to the TXG Podcast. My name's Ian Fraser.
I'm Matt Blois.
We have been talking about doing this for quite some time on the back of obviously the work we've been doing on our YouTube channel.
We've been talking about it for, I want to say we've been talking about it for a year.
At least
and that's
a year,
just with me.
it?
I know you've been talking about it for even more than that probably.
Yeah, this has been something I've been really keen to do. But something about it feels like this is the right time to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the community that we have sort of around us now is sort of the size that it's the right time to diversify our content and sort of give a different offering. This was kind of born, the idea from turning our Q&A into a podcast,
which a lot of listeners actually comment that. I shouldn't say listeners, viewers of the live streams say, I like listening to this, just the audio, obviously not watching a video in the car, but I'll drive to work and I put the audio in from live Q&A. It'd be great if you did that as a podcast. So that would be obviously that we would want to make a real podcast, which we're doing. But I think it's great to sort of tap into an audience that we may find people that just love golf podcasts that maybe have never seen what we've done on YouTube, which is interesting to me. And I wasn't really into podcasts probably till about a year and a half ago. And since I've kind of listened to others and I have my own favorites, I think I've sort of slowly developed an interest in being part of one as well, just because there's something very sort of it's different. It's different to sort of experience something audio only. And I think the format's different. The people we'll talk to is different. You can access people differently. It's going to be very worthwhile, I think.
I think that last point you made there is exactly where the value we'll bring on the podcast will be. Being sort of fairly remotely set, here in Toronto, we don't have access to get to the UK as much as we would like, get to the US as much as we would like. So times like the PGA show, we maybe do get in the same place as a lot of the people who we would like to have on as guests, but the reality is everyone has busy agendas that week. It's not really possible. So the sort of platform of the podcast is going to give us a phenomenal opportunity to spend, 30 to 40 minutes per week with some sort of industry expert who will, again, just add further value to our community.
Absolutely. And I think the format of it being, a little more conversational. I think we're fairly conversational in a video, but I think the time frame is obviously quite different. We can sit with someone now for 45 minutes and just, talk and kind of get their story and things that they're interested in. So it's going to be a nice wide reach for us and something that we can really, I think we can do. You can meet with people a little bit more easily than trying to make a video together.
Well, and I think the nature of the development of the podcast is going to be, again, based on the same foundations that we built the YouTube channel on, which is to listen. Who do you guys want us to try and get in touch with? Our sort of ideas, there'll be instructors, there will be fellow YouTubers perhaps, people who are in that similar space. I mean, we're in that space, but we don't live in that space full time. So I'd like to get the perspective of some people who are living in that content creation space full time. I'd love to get some players on there, some people who are playing at the absolute, top level. As I said, we said instructors, biomechanics experts, just people who can add value to the community.
Yes. And especially people that I think, we're obviously very fortunate to have access to these people, but most people aren't going to have the ability to have a conversation like that with some of the top instructors in the world, or people who are executives at club companies, and sort of understand why, what they watch on the golf channel is the way it is. So I think we're hoping it will be sort of that access to the industry that people kind of want to have.
Absolutely. Well, and we're starting off with a bit of a bang.
Absolutely.
Two people who, we had to make a decision who the people were that we brought on to sort of launch the podcast. So you can only do that first episode once.
That's very true. They live forever.
They live forever. They're immortalized in this day and age. So, picking Andrew Rice was a very easy decision for me, and very fortunate that he's a busy man, as all the people will be that we get on the podcast.
100%.
We never gave him too much notice.
No, well, I don't even mind saying, I think that's just the beauty of, and I think that was a moment of sort of inspiration I had just today when we started, is I thought, man, like this would be really hard to do in a film format. Like imagine trying to get to the same city, to the same place, carve out the time, film it, and just this format just lets you do exactly, we make a call. It's great that you obviously have a relationship with Andrew and Gareth from episode 2. We'll hear from. It's just cool to be able to do this. I think with sort of less, I don't want to say less effort. It's just less delay. Really, we get to do it right away.
You're right. I mean, so I was down in Pinehurst last week, and Johnny Wonder sends me a text, and he says, "I'd like to be in the podcast today." So I've literally just came off the golf course 10 minutes.
Yeah.
See the message. So I go grab a shower, quick bite to eat, and then there we are. Yeah. I can be sitting with a group in Pinehurst. I don't know where he was.
Anywhere. Yeah.
Could have been anywhere. and we can jump on and do a little Q&A, a little, just touch base, state of play. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that.
Pretty cool.
That was my headphone there. That's why it's episode 1, because I learned how to mute my laptop.
Do you know what I love about this though, Matty? This feels like the first day we shot out the first YouTube video.
I don't know if it's as bad as that, but it's
not as bad as that. That's for sure. That's for sure.
I think if I could remember sort of like some of the not just funny, but sort of just genuine moments from those first few shoots, it was like, this is the way I think in this day and age you start something. Yeah. I just don't see the value anymore, because this, the internet is the beauty of this. You get to sort of you get to post, get feedback. You get to just do it. You don't have to go through the usual channels of television stuff. And it's, when we filmed our first video, we literally had no idea what was going to happen.
None.
I think this time we have a little bit more confidence because we have established an audience already. But I think I like the way that this is going to evolve the same way the channel evolved with everyone's kind of input.
Yeah, I think this is the type of stuff that's going to add more fuel to our fire, vary the content that we offer, and just touch base with more people on a daily basis. So if you don't see us on YouTube, you can listen to the podcast. Yeah, we'll try and make it as frequent as we can, just as for an expectation. I think the chances are we'll probably go. What do you think? 2 a week?
Podcast episodes. Yeah. I would firmly say one a week. And if we have weeks, I think we've gotten to it. Well, it took us quite a while to get into a really nice schedule with the YouTube channel.
That's right.
And I think we're both very happy with how consistent we've been. Yeah. I think with podcasts, I would venture a guess to say it will be easier to be consistent because just the nature of recording is a little bit less involved.
Yeah.
So, once a week for sure. And then if we have stuff going on that we want to share, we can sprinkle in an extra one here and there.
A little bonus piece of content. Well, this is going to be a lot of fun. Andrew is an interesting guy. He comes from a really interesting background in episode 2, which we do with Gareth.
Yep.
Same sort of thing, incredible sort of story and sort of his day-to-day life is quite unique, working with the absolute best players in the world. So I think it'll just be a good one to sit back and just listen to these guys.
Oh, I think so too.
Give an account of what it is they do on a day-to-day basis.
And this isn't just equipment. Mm-hmm. It won't be just golf equipment. So I think the timing of this is great because we really just started kind of venturing into a little bit of instruction content.
Sure.
And
seems to be going well,
and I think people are enjoying it quite a bit, and the comments seem very positive. Mm-hmm. I think we both enjoyed filming those episodes too. So that I think is part of, and obviously we dipped our toe with doing some golf vlogs and stuff like that, which we're going to do more of. So this is a nice, I think, step of TXG being a part of golf, not just part of equipment, basically.
Yeah. No, I think that's exactly it. I think that's very well put.
Okay, so our first podcast here, our first guest ever, very exciting. So someone very well respected, very well known in the industry, Ian. That's Andrew Rice, and you've had a nice history with Andrew over the years, working together.
Yeah. Well, when we decided that we were going to go down this podcast route, and it's always a milestone as episode number 1, and you always think, who are we going to get for number 1?
Yeah,
let's make that a special one. Let's make that one that we look back on and have a real fond memory. So top of my list was this man.
That's awesome. Yeah. No, I think from what you shared in the past, the testing you guys have done together, and I follow Andrew on Instagram as well, just seeing his videos and stuff. It seems like a very, very smart and interesting guy. So I'm looking forward to kind of getting some thoughts from him.
Absolutely. So here we have it, Mr. Andrew Rice.
Andrew, welcome in. Thanks for being with us here.
Guys, such an honor, really. Episode 1, first guest. Truly honored. Hey, that's great. Thank you so much for having me on. Looking forward to it.
Top of the list. So why don't we, for the very, very few people who will be listening to this who do not know who you are, why don't we start at the top with a little origin story? Let's kind of get the backstory to who Andrew Rice is.
Well, 1987, I came to America from South Africa, played college golf at the University of Central Florida for 4 years. Following that, I chased the dream for, I would say, another 3 years or so. And while I was in college, I was taking lessons from David Ledbetter. And when I got to my third year of playing professional golf, I decided I needed a more regular paycheck and thought, what better thing to do than stick with what you know? Not that I knew much about teaching. I thought I did at the time. And so I started working for David Ledbetter in the mid-90s, and I worked with David all the way up until 2000. And from there, I moved up to South Carolina, a golf course just outside Hilton Head. I was there for 15 years as the director of instruction. And then about 4 years ago, I moved to the Westin Savannah Harbor Resort in Savannah, obviously, and really enjoying it there. I love the people there, and I must say I do like the resort side of things. Just for what I like to do as a coach, just makes it that much easier for me.
Yeah, and we'll dive into that part because I've obviously been there with you and visited at the Savannah Harbor Resort, and it's an incredible resort. It's in a great setting, just right across the river from Savannah, the old town, and just a phenomenal venue. So let's kind of dive back into that, because at that time, joining David Ledbetter and on his staff, I mean, Ledbetter was huge at that point. I mean, he was obviously doing his work with Faldo right around then. It must have been when you joined him.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Trace, I got to tell you, it was, looking back, I was so fortunate, really, to work for the guy who was pretty much the kingpin in golf instruction at that time. Anybody who was anybody had to go and see David Ledbetter. And it really wasn't even close at that time. And so to be able to work for David and learn from David for the 5 or 6 years that I worked for him was truly invaluable. But the big thing for me was I had that David Ledbetter name on my resume.
Yeah,
and it just made it so easy to go, and it was the onset of golf instruction, really. And so all these clubs were building learning centers, and I don't even think there were businesses like what you guys have at that point yet, TXG. And so that was still coming, but it's amazing how it's all just grown pretty much from the mid-90s, particularly the golf instruction, club fitting, just let's get better at golf mindset.
Yeah, no, very true.
No, I think it's interesting to hear someone like yourself working with the top coach at the time. And you've seen this in the industry as well. I think the willingness for those at the top of golf to share with people that are wanting to get into, whether it's coaching, club fitting, things like that. I think that's probably why golf instruction is growing so fast. Is that people that are like yourself, Andrew, that are extremely good and very well respected. You're willing to spend time with a coach that may have just started, and Ian does that with club fitters as well, or people that communicate with him online. So it's just always nice to hear that before sort of the internet age, I guess you'd call it, that you sort of sought David out and worked with him for 13 years. It's amazing, really, when you think about it, that he was willing to do that, and obviously you've passed that on to people onwards from there. So it's awesome.
I try to, and I think it's so important for. Yeah, it's tough for me to say, us older guys, but, having been around a little while now, I'm certainly getting there. But I think it's important for us to share just the mindset of teaching, and it might not be, well, you've got to swing this way or you've got to fit somebody this way. but just how ultimately what we do, it all comes down to relationships. It all comes down to people and how you make people feel and how you treat them. And I think that will never stop being important in any industry, but in particular in ours.
Yeah, that's really well said, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's interesting. I didn't realize you were in with lead that early. So, I mean, I know other parts of the Andrew Rice timeline, but it really strikes me as, you were in at the start of multiple things here, because I know that how early you were in on the social media game. Very early. One of the sort of pioneers, I would say. It's very true, in terms of sharing information. That's kind of how sort of I think you and I, obviously pre-Atlantic Golf Club in Long Island, I kind of Hoyt introduced me to your stuff on social media. Then obviously the TrackMan stuff that you were doing at the time, you were doing research on things before really anyone else was using it as a research tool, and you were sort of using that for the betterment of golfers and teachers and fitters like myself. And I'll blow the smoke for you, but you really have been a pioneer in that sense. It's true. It really is.
Thanks, Ian. I remember when I went to Atlantic and I was exposed to TrackMan for the first time. I looked at this, what was then quite a large orange box, and I said, man, just think of all the cool stuff I can test, and understand better. And, I still remember getting duct tape and taping pennies to the outside of golf balls and hitting them on TrackMan to try to simulate mud balls, and hitting a golf ball off the cart path to see if that made a difference and if the ball really was pinched against the ground. And really full disclosure, a couple of days ago I was sitting down and thinking to myself, and I said, Andrew, you've become so busy that you don't do that kind of stuff anymore. And I must say that kind of stuff still appeals to me. And so really what I'm going to try to dedicate myself to in 2020 is getting back into that. And I'm going to work in 3-month segments, and I'm going to, with the help of Dr. Paul Wood, Eric Henriksen, the guys at Ping, Sasha McKenzie, another great Ping ambassador, I'm going to tap into their expertise and their ideas and say, guys, come on, what do you want me to test? I've got this fairly large body of students, and how about this wedge test or this putting or this green reading test? And I think there's so much interesting stuff that we have yet to learn about human being athletes, and that can only ultimately help us improve as coaches and do a better job as coaches. So 2020 is my year to commit to getting back into that curious mindset and testing things and trying to understand things better.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I think, and you've kind of almost touched back on, the things that make you happy, the things that make you tick, what you enjoy doing. And I think we always find the best in ourselves when we do that, Andrew. I really believe, if you're going to try to perform at your highest, you have to be happy doing it. I really believe that.
Yeah, for sure.
Sounds, and I know that how passionate you are about doing that sort of testing. So talk to me a little bit about part of what I saw you doing was the Wedge project. Tell me a little bit about, what that was like and what the findings you found from that.
It was exciting times, Ian. I one thing I wanted to understand was I knew, and we've all done it as golfers, we get down and we've got this 30-yard pitch shot, and we hit the shot and the ball comes off at about head high. It feels great. But it looks kind of strange. The ball comes out really low, and everybody you're playing with is screaming bite because they think you've thinned it. And you're standing there going, just relax, boys. Watch this thing when it hits the green, because it takes skip, and jams on the brakes right next to the hole. And that was a shot that I really wanted to understand. And so I would say it took, I spent a good 3 or 4 years running through data and doing tests, and I've tested every a club with no grooves, a club with Vaseline on the face, range balls, mud balls, you name it. Trying to understand how spin rates work and launch angles work. And really the findings were as follows. There's a lot of golfers believe that, if the more loft you deliver, in other words, if you open up the face of your lob wedge and you take a full swing, you're going to spin the ball a lot. Well, that's actually not the case. You get to a point where you're delivering too much loft and your spin rate comes down. And so there's a certain loft you can deliver. For most golfers, when they're hitting off of fairway grass, not off a mat or not indoors, when they're hitting off of real live grass, I would say about 45 degrees of loft is optimal. Nice, clean, fresh wedge with a premium golf ball on the receiving end. And if you get good, clean contact with no moisture or matter between the face and the golf ball, then you're going to start to get that low launching, high spinning, ultra controllable chip or pitch type shot. I also noticed that golfers tended to do better when they ran the club along the ground, when they didn't get the club stuck in the ground, less divot centric and more skimming the club along the ground. A couple of technical things to help with that. Certainly get the handle rising through impact, keep your face and your head releasing through the shot, keep your body rotating through the shot. Seem to make some nice differences. And, I look at that and I put that out about 5 or 6 years ago. And I look at it as a body of work and I go, it's kind of stood the test of time quite nicely. There's a few tweaks I would make here and there, but it has held up quite nicely.
Yeah. Obviously, we saw you doing a lot of that stuff at Atlantic and at Berkeley, and a lot of that stuff is what I hear you still talking about today, and certain little phrases like landing the plane and all that sort of stuff take me back to that, which is really, really cool. I know there was other projects that you were looking at. You were going to do a driver project. Did you ever expand on that series?
I didn't, I really didn't find enough of a body of work to put it all together and get it out there. I will also say this, that, and Matt mentioned this, the internet age, this flow of information is so much greater than it ever was. And certainly in the last 4 or 5 years, that flow of information has got out there. And I think, not only golf coaches, but golfers, if they're keen enough, they can go and find out stuff. Why does the ball curve in a hook fashion when I hit it off the toe? What difference does a 460 cc driver make? What does this shaft mean? And I think golfers are to the point where they understand that a lot better. Certainly not all of them, and there's plenty out there who can learn a whole bunch more, myself included. But the flow of information is a lot greater now. And I think the market for something like that has decreased with this easy access to good information if you know where to look. But, as you guys have seen with what you've had this tremendous success with, is people still want to hear the advice of experts. They want to get your take. And the cool thing that I see with what you guys are doing is it's the same thing with golf instruction. Golfers who go online typically are heavily invested in the game. They love the game. They're golf geeks. And they want to have that voice, that person that they can relate to, that they understand, and that they can comprehend and apply into their game. And you guys have formed those relationships with your viewers, and it's really cool to see how much it's grown. It's awesome, man.
Oh, we appreciate that.
Yeah, no, thank you. That certainly means a lot. And I think, that community that kind of, we've tried to cultivate is the key to the growth of our channel, and just, keep giving them what they're asking for. Keep listening. I think that's one thing we've tried to be very, very good at is listening to what people are asking for, not just doing what we want to do. more answering the requests of our community.
Well, ultimately, people will tell you what they need to know, and it's actually
to listen. Yeah.
As Andrew was saying that about drivers, it actually makes quite a bit of sense, because the wedge videos we've done that I think you mentioned early on were kind of inspired by Andrew's wedge testing, the wet wedge testing.
Wet wedge test was the big one.
I think the comments we received, there was more like genuine shock about results like that than there's ever been for driver stuff. There's some driver videos we've done, I think, that people found somewhat, I guess, groundbreaking is a bit of a strong word, but you know what I mean. Something that's not what they
shock
expected.
value to them.
Wind testing, but it's funny that the wedge testing specifically, Andrew, and even technique-wise, we just started doing a little bit of that on the channel as well. I think a lot of what you're mentioning, how less loft actually is going to help you with more spin, things like that. I think you're right. It is much less understood than the full swing, and I think maybe that's just people are drawn to driver videos because that's golf is most interesting off the tee. Let's be honest, people want to hit it further. But the wedge game is just it's completely, and by myself, I'm so guilty of it. I don't understand 90% of what you really should, and I'm just now starting to kind of get how tour players hit it, so nicely with the wedges.
Yeah. It really is. There's a tremendous amount of misinformation out there, guys, and I see this in all genres of golf. Be it green reading to club fitting to golf clubs full swings. There's a tremendous amount of misinformation out there, and there really has been very little information, be it good or bad, pertaining to wedge stuff, and this is the way to do it, and this is what causes the ball to spin, and this is how it spins more. And my favorite is someone comes to me for a 3-day golf school and they go, Andrew, my ball never checks up. Well, what ball are you playing? Just whichever ball I find. Okay, let's start there. It's the golf ball doesn't know you're not a tour player. And you are, if you've got the right stuff and you just strike the ball properly, which anyone can do, if you strike the ball properly with the right equipment in the right situation, you're going to get that ball to check up no matter who you are.
Andrew, recall that little story from Berkeley Hall when I think it was Pat Goss was working with Kyle Stanley. I think it was Kyle, and they were trying to get the ball
it was Gary Woodland.
Oh, was it Woodland?
Gary Woodland.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell us that one.
That's pretty much why Gary won the Open. You guys didn't notice that?
We're about to find out why.
It took 10 years to kick in.
This is a beauty.
But I know many of us, and certainly people who are listening in will remember that shot that Gary Woodland hit off the 71st green. That 64-degree wedge off the green, and I can still close my eyes, and that ball was low like crazy. It landed on the crest from one side of the green to the other, and it had all kinds of check on it. And here's a player hitting a 64-degree. He didn't take a divot. The club skimmed the ground. And that was the peak of friction. He delivered just the right amount of loft. He certainly struck it perfectly. What a shot, what a situation. But the story with Gary Woodland was quite interesting, and Pat certainly won't mind me telling it because I've heard him tell it on a few occasions. But a long time ago, Gary was playing in the Heritage event on Hilton Head, and he was practicing leading up to the event a couple of days before out at the course I was at. And so he's got his Callaway golf balls and his fresh Callaway wedge, and Pat's out there, and they're hitting wedge shots, and Gary's hitting like a little 25-yard little pitch shot. And I'm watching, and I've watched, half a dozen shots or so, and the ball's going much higher than Gary intends, and it's landing on this skinny portion of the green and rolling over the back. And after every shot, Gary is cleaning his club, cleaning the grooves with a tee. And so I'm watching, and Pat leans over and says, when he gets it right, it comes out much lower, and it takes one hop and stops next to the pin. And so I'm watching, and the ball keeps going high, hitting on the green and rolling off the back. Doesn't have very much in the way of spin. And so eventually I figured it out, or what I hoped I had figured out. And so I said, Pat, would you mind if I said something? So Pat says, yeah. So I go up there, and there's Gary cleaning his tee cleaning his face, the grooves, with a tee. So I said, Gary, can I have a look at your wedge? And I look at his wedge, and I see what I'm expecting to see. And I said, what do you see on the face, Gary? He said, nothing, it's clean. I said, take a close look. He says, no, it's clean. I said, where's the towel? So his caddy brings over a nice, fresh white towel, and I give the face a light white with this damp, wet white towel. And, of course, the color on the towel is green. And Gary's technique was fine. He's hitting out of nice, tight lies, nice, tight grass. But what was happening, and this is important for people to understand, is that the club on appropriately struck pitch shots will actually brush along the ground, the grass, prior to getting to the golf ball. And so what was happening was the club's picking up little bits of grass on its way into the ball. This grass is getting crushed between the face and the golf ball. And Gary's cleaning out the grooves. Well, on a 25-yard shot, those grooves don't play much of a role at all. Mm-hmm. And so he's leaving that green film, I call it green slime, he's leaving that on the club face, but cleaning the grooves. And so as he hits more shots, that film is building up, and it's getting thicker and thicker. And so now the golf ball isn't being gripped by the flat spots between the grooves at all. And so I said, Gary, the only thing in my estimation you're doing wrong is you're not cleaning your club properly. You're cleaning the grooves. You need to clean the flat spots. And I would recommend you use a damp towel to do that. It's much better than a tee. So he looks at me. He's kind of an intimidating guy. You know, he hits it maybe 5 to 10 yards longer than me. And, why are you guys laughing, eh?
I don't know.
I've seen it in person. It's only 5 to 10.
Grace knows that I swing it at like 101. So he's an intimidating guy. Looks at me like, you know, you must be crazy. And so I clean the club off. I give it to him. I say, try that. And luckily, the next 4 shots come out really low, one hop and stop next to the pin. And I said, guys, have a great day. As I walked out, I got out of there. But it really, you know, I like to relate that story to people because it goes a long way to illustrate that, yes, there's some good information out there that, you know, world-class caliber players, world-class caliber coaches are not yet aware of. This was 10 years ago, so people are certainly more aware of it now. But I know there's tons of golfers out there who don't understand the value of, you know, getting that club nice and clean and understanding that clean, friction-based contact between the face and the golf ball.
Yeah, I mean, and that kind of almost back to what Matt mentioned a little while ago with the inspiration we took from what you mentioned about the hydropearl finish on the ping wedges, and we took a dive into the Glide 3.0, and I mean that was a real game changer for us in the sense of, I think people's taking sort of notice of some of the testing that we were doing, and even for us to start to dabble in that sort of in that little area, just being more curious than ever before.
I think it went also a long way to just saying, like, the grooves are not everything, are they? Like, it's that finish is what Andrew's saying, is that that's the friction is created by what goes on in the face. Absolutely. And the grooves are, you know, they serve a purpose, but not that purpose. Sure. Yeah,
to disperse the matter. That's their role.
And I must say, that was very sneaky of you guys, because I didn't say which wedges it was we tested, but I posted a picture of the club face of the two of them alongside each other. And knowing you guys, you could look at the face and the grooves and go, that's that wedge and that's that wedge. And it was funny how the week later, this new test has come out.
What a coincidence. What a coincidence.
Well, we
very, very sneaky.
I know. We had some other companies sort of reach out to us and some of the R&D teams, and, you know, they were looking to us to see how their wedges were stacking up in the test. And there was one particular company was sort of on en route to Pebble Beach for one of their I guess it was like a retreat for high achieving accounts, and, you know, one of the guys in the bus is watching our video and they see their product being tested, and, you know, it fared okay in the test, certainly in the bottom half, but, you know, and he's sitting next to the R&D guy and he's going, why is this happening? And so he then picks up the phone, he phones his team, you know, to start kind of running tests. And this stuff has kind of shockwave value.
I can't believe that you've never told me that story. That's a wild story.
No, it's incredible.
That's
so
cool.
they then started putting their own products through this testing and wondered why it's not stacking up in all conditions. When it's so vital. I mean,
amazing.
That sort of stuff is really cool. On the technology side of things, you've always been the first person I've seen with just about every new piece of technology. You had a TrackMan pretty much before anyone else had seen, Swing Catalyst before anyone else. When did you realize that technology was going to be such a big part of your teaching?
Ian, I think I got lucky. I still remember with my buddy Blake Shue, we were walking around the PGA show one year, and there was a company, it was a Scandinavian company called Swingia, and Swingia, and they had this mat that you could stand on and make swings, and it would have this weird-looking trace about all these different pressures that you'd put on the ground, and I certainly didn't understand it, but I was like, wow, that's really cool. I knew that when I sat in the first TrackMan University in Orlando during the PGA show, and I looked around, and there must have been 50 people in there, and TrackMan had just come out with their TrackMan Master certification, and I said to myself, okay, I looked at everyone in there, I said, this is going to be a race to see who can get out in front, because I know everyone in that room wanted to be a master, and I said, I've got to be one of the first guys, because just getting out in front of the wave, I think you look at TrackMan and Radar and that now, and it's kind of normal now, isn't it? Every coach has something of it. Almost every decent player has some kind of a launch monitor that they're using. I think we, as a coaching community, we understand ground pressure and forces that much better. The neat thing there is that, well, maybe not the neat thing, the unfortunate thing there is there's so many different ways to get it done. There's so many different formulas. There's no real set way, whereas on TrackMan, you look at the numbers, and if you want to hit a draw, you need that path into out. There's no other way to do it. To hit a functional draw, you need the path into out, and you need to face a little close to the path, or just hit it off the toe every time. And you can get the job done that way. So ground pressure, TrackMan, I think 3D. I'm in on K-Motion. I don't understand it to the level that I would like to, that I need to, most probably. I just think, look at us as human beings. We've advanced so much in all fields. There's no reason that golf instruction is going to stay stagnant. I was doing a seminar for the Australian PGA, and I was talking to this group of coaches, and I had a lady coach come up to me at lunchtime, and she said, between you and I just want you to know that I think TrackMan is a waste of time. And I said, okay, that's your opinion. But I said, how did you come to this seminar today? She said, I came in my car. I said, well, why didn't you ride a horse? And it really is that, because we're advancing. Okay, we don't go places on horses anymore. We don't go to a doctor who doesn't have an X-ray or an MRI, and we don't, we've got better ways to do things, and as long as we keep an open mind and we understand it's not going to ruin you, it's only going to help you get to the issue, the heart of the matter, that much sooner. And I think golf instruction technology does exactly that. It just helps. It gives you better insight. It gives you better information, and gives you the ability to get back on track that much faster.
Yeah, I think that's really well said too. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we could probably go on and on and on, but we will love you and leave you at that. I think that's been a really, really good way for us to start the podcast journey.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was great talking to you, Andrew. That was awesome.
Thanks, guys. Well, Fraser, I do have some questions. I've got a couple of questions for you. Okay. What's your club speed up to these days? What's your club speed up to?
I love it.
See, in certain company, I can feel pretty good that it's up to 115, somewhere around about there. But I'm sitting in the room with two guys who've both had their club head speed. One has been today around 126, 127. The other guy, who's not even on the channel, he had it at 132 today. So, I mean,
goodness,
I need to pick better friends, Andrew.
Mate, I've got to take my hat off to you, and I honestly think that you should do a podcast pertaining to how you, because I remember at Atlantic, you and I were the same. We were like low 101, 2, 3
max.
And you've moved that to 115. And I think I know, in fact, there are lots of people out there would like to know how you've done it, and what they can do to start to do that. Because as I say to people, and golfers, I don't think golf coaches really understand this very well. It's what's the number one most important thing in playing good golf? Number one thing. Well, question for each of you. What do you think it is?
The number one.
Wow.
Well, I mean,
number one.
With regards to the topic of where we are right now, I've got to imagine, distance is involved in there somewhere.
Distance.
Right.
It's distance, because, and I paint this picture for people. I say, okay, here I am. I stand out. I've got this perfectly fitted 7-iron in my hand. I take it back. It looks like Adam Scott at the top. I shallow that thing. I rotate, shift my weight. I hit the ball out the middle of the face. I take a little Mo Norman bacon strip divot. The ball takes off dead straight at the flag, never leaves the flag, and it lands at 96 yards from me.
Yeah,
that's true.
Right. That's exactly it.
How good can that golfer be? That golfer can only be so good. That golfer can never get to a point where they are really good. And so we've got to move the ball out there first. And so many just regular golfers desperately need to figure out a way. And I will say this, whether you're 7, 17, or 70, you can gain distance. You can definitely gain distance, but it takes work just like anything else. And once you can get the ball moving, you're at 115 now, okay? So I'm not going to play with you ever again. But now, I would imagine now your priority is shifting from speed to control. Now you've got to get to where you can have that face under control, And so now that's got to be the 2020 plan. But I for one would love to hear and just gain some insight into what you've done and how you've done it, because it's just interesting, and I think a lot of people can get some good takeaways from that, Gus.
I'm sure there's a lot of people that would like to hear about that for sure. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of funny, Andrew, that you mentioned that, because that version of myself, not many of the people that I'm around now know that version, the 101 version.
Yeah.
He hit it.
Yeah. I mean, so I think, most people kind of who see it was certainly at TXG and are in the company I'm in right now, most people think I've always kind of been around 110 and upwards and seen that kind of little progression. But, and I tell them, because there's guys in our company who swing around 100 miles an hour, and I kind of try and let them know, listen, that doesn't have to stay that way. There's things you can do. You're going to have to work at it. You're going to have to be uncomfortable swinging at a speed that you don't think you can handle. But, always remember the body has so many more gears to go through. You just have to work in a sequence that allows that speed, access to that speed. Yeah. And I think that was the biggest thing that I found, Andrew, was a sequence in my swing that allowed me to access more speed. Yeah, that was it for me for sure. So, but I will have definitely put some thought into that one.
I'd like to hear it too. I mean, I used to swing at like 98 when I was 98 miles an hour when I was probably 21, 22. Yeah. So I think.
Are you serious?
Oh yeah, 100%. And technique obviously is 99% of it, because I was, I don't think I've gained much clubhead speed through fitness. I think it's helped, but the technique is the thing that's, I think the technique of how to create speed is something that just isn't understood. And I didn't understand it at all. And then once I got a taste of it, I saw kind of just like leaps and bounds over the years.
I think that's where I stalled on gaining speed, was because I was looking for it in the gym. 100%. I would work out like a maniac looking for speed. I would try to lift more. I would try to, be more dynamic in the gym. And I was as stable as a golfer needed to ever be, but I was not fast. No means was fast in any which way. And at the time I was surrounded by good players at that time, Andrew, obviously when, with Hoyt and all those boys back at Modern Golf, and they were all great players and they all hit it a ton. And I just always wondered what the what the formula was to that speed.
Yeah.
It was nice to be on that journey.
It's congrats to you, man. Congrats to both of you. That's amazing, and that is something people would love to hear about, guys. Put it out there, share.
Find some archival videos from.
Oh, I've got the TrackMan data. I've got and the old TrackMan sort of file. I've got all. I can dig those up.
Love it.
Dig those up for sure. Okay, brother. Well, we'll love you and leave you, as I say. Couldn't be happier that you're guest number one.
Hey, thanks, guys. What an honor. I really appreciate it. And I hope this venture goes as fantastically well for you as your previous venture went. And so just keep putting out the good info. And I know me and all your other listeners and fans and followers love what you're doing. Keep it up.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
We'll see you in Orlando in a couple of months.
That's right.
Look forward to it, guys. Cheers.
Okay, bud.
Thanks, Andrew.
Bye.
See ya.
Very cool.
Good conversation, eh?
Yeah. I mean, always an interesting sort of guy to get a perspective on a lot of things like that.
He's very sharp, isn't he?
Yeah, very sharp. Very, very aware. That's almost what I was, getting to with the Ledbetter stuff and the TrackMan.
I didn't know about
that. The awareness that TrackMan was what it was. Even just that little insight into how he saw the TrackMan Master program and that he had to lead the way in that, and he was. I mean, if you go back and look at who were the top people to get master status, he was top of that list. Quick. Yeah, very, very cool.
There's definitely there's sort of an insight to seeing what the future of it is, and then obviously to apply himself to the right thing.
Yeah,
it's good. It's good, obviously, that they kind of, it's a leap at the time, but when you look back and you think, well, what else would you have done? Right, TrackMan was the thing.
Yeah. No, it's timing. I can't help but think that. In these things, sometimes in life, timing plays a huge role. And, his timing of when he came out of college, and he never spoke to it there, but Andrew had a really bad hip injury.
Oh, okay.
So that kind of has debilitated how much he's been able to play the game. And it kind of limits his ability to create too much speed. And, he's a kind of, like you said, he's a 100-mile-an-hour swinger, but that's a physical limitation rather than a technical limitation, that sort of thing.
Because he obviously understands, the ways to create speed.
He knows the mechanics.
I think there's going to be opportunities to have, we're fortunate to have connections to kind of body movement experts. When I was just in Orlando, I had some interesting conversations about exactly what you're talking about, physical limitations, and getting instruction before you know what yours are can almost be sort of, can be almost pointless.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to talking more about that.
Well,
that's podcast number one.
I'm really happy we were able to do that with Andrew, as I say. He's someone who's been a huge influence on me. I would have met Andrew when I was around 28 years old.
Okay.
So he's certainly someone I've looked up to, and he's been a huge inspiration to me. So that was really cool.
Yeah, I think that will serve as a big compliment to him, obviously, because people always wonder sort of how you got your start, and that's I've heard you mention him, many times. It's probably the most recurring name I've heard about from you in terms of who sort of shaped your knowledge and sort of your path in golf. So
awesome. No, I mean, anytime we would get together, it was a science experiment waiting to happen. We'd bounce ideas off one another. I would love to watch him teach. He would come over when I was doing fittings. Yeah. We just always had great conversation about what made what tick from one person's aspect, and just a real yin and yang.
It's awesome. Yeah, great stuff. So we're going to be on the phone with Gareth Raflewski for episode 2.
Episode number 2 coming swiftly.
Coming today, not for listeners, but coming for us today. That's going to be. I'm looking forward to that as well. Speaking of things that are misunderstood, short game and putting and stuff like that is a big one, and obviously someone like Gareth that's been so successful, there's going to be some interesting stuff there.
And I think people will kind of maybe potentially be less familiar with the name, but once they hear the resume, I think there's going to be a lot of people who are going to stand up and take notice of his body of work and the success he's having on major tours around the world.
All right,
podcast number 1 signing off
in the books.